Hey everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna turn this on. I'm gonna hit present and then kind of like preface this from the first screen. Um, like obviously we've gotten to a point here in time where I think the way hitting is being taught is a little bit different than what it used to be, and I think it's pretty clear that there's been like this massive obsession with mechanics. Now, I would probably call myself a hypocrite in the sense that uh, mechanics was the thing that took me from just a regular independent player or a guy that could hit a little bit to that next level and made me a major league player because it opened up so many possibilities for me, really, because I didn't understand how to deliver the bat to the ball the right way. Um, But I will say this, like I built a hitting foundation first. And I think if you look at any of the players in the mechanics swing revolution, if anybody's read Swing Kings, the book that Bobby was kind of featured in, Jared Diamond wrote it. It was Bobby. They talked about, it was like Bobby Wallenbrock. Teacher Man was in there a little bit. Who else? I think Doug Lotta. Anyway, it talks about Justin Turner, JD Martinez, myself, Donaldson, and Aaron Judge, right? So how our swing changes kind of propelled us to being much better players. But what I would say to that is like all those guys had such a solid foundation of hit for years and years and years. So I think the mechanics become just like one piece of the whole puzzle. And I think because mechanics are easier to teach in the sense that we can move players around in the cage and we can tell them what their back elbow's doing. We can tell them what their shoulder's doing and we can tell them what their feet are doing. It becomes really easy to focus on that. And I think when we do that, we take away from the external focus of creating a result, right? Because at the end of the day, baseball is a game about creating an outcome that we want. So when we hit, we obviously want to hit the ball hard. We want to, and the most simple concept is hit it where they ain't, right? So uh, this whole relationship of like, let's create swings that are optimal to be able to do that, then now gives the athlete a focus on like I have to optimize all the time. And we all know, I think hitting doesn't exist in an optimal world. It's a suboptimal practice. One of my favorite go-to lines right now is hitting isn't about being good. It's about sucking the least. It's really a battle of attrition. Players need to understand how to survive because more often than not, throughout the course of a lengthened season, you're not going to play at optimal. Your mechanics are going to break down. You're going to have nagging little injuries that are going to cause your body to do things that you don't want to do. So, as much as I think the basis for mechanics needs to exist, sorry about that. I'm getting a phone call. I didn't know that was going to happen. Wow, that's weird. I don't know what to do. I'm going to decline that. Okay, good. Is my screen back? I hope.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
So the point is, we have to understand how to create mechanics that exist in a suboptimal setting. Meaning, we have to set a foundation of how to move, but really adapt our movements within that so that we can create the results we want when we're not at our peak, I guess. My favorite. So get into it. We're developing better athletes than we ever have before. It's insane how good athletes are. I see high school kids and college kids that are moving weight and have flexibility like they didn't when I was growing up. I think generationally we have a tendency to say that without it being true. I think it's really true right now. There are college kids who are, moving weight that I couldn't even have dreamed of moving when I was in, a freshman in college, sophomore in college. I didn't really have as much of a focus on training when I was a kid. I hit in the cage with my dad, and then I worked at an indoor facility just so I could be around the game. I never really had like a workout coach, and now you see so many like organizations and programs who are including that in the package for their travel ball players. Or if it's not, those players end up going to work out with a dedicated strength coach at a particular facility. So we have better athletes. Like, that's not the problem. Like, athletes are as good as they've ever been. But what I think is happening, like I said before, is we have so many movement-based goals that we're trying to chase this like perfect swing. And it happens to me every day. I talk to a player who is looking for it. They're looking for the magic pill. They're looking for the swing mechanic that will take them to the next level. Like, I get more like random side view videos of guys that are like, hey, can you take a look at this and tell me what you got? And it's just like them hitting in a cage in flips or off a machine. And I'm supposed to look at side view with no timing consideration, no thought about like what was going through their mind. So I have literally no context as to what the thought process was going into the swing, if there was an adjustment from one swing to the next, and what your intent was on the swing. So literally, I'm starting to believe that kids think there is a perfect swing or a perfect mechanic that will allow them to be a great hitter. And it's terrifying because I say to them all the time, and I'm like, hitting's an intertangled web of shit. Like, it's all this stuff. And you're trying to rely on this one thing because you feel like it's the thing that you're seeing or is being talked about the most. And if anybody watched my presentation last week, I talked about how hard it is to get athletes to hear you now because there's so much information, and they're going and finding this information online, Twitter, social media. And when they do that, ultimately it creates this circle of doom in their head where when they don't hit, they fear it's their mechanics. Like, they fear it's their mechanics. And the reality of it is there might be something mechanically like a little bit off, but more likely is you're not on time, you're swinging at bad pitches, you've had some bad luck, and then all of a sudden all of that leads you down this path of like, oh crap, I stink. And now your insecurities start to manifest themselves, and you start thinking, I have to get a hit instead of I want to get a hit. And just that little change in a word is kind of a mindset thing that guys had talked about for years. Coaches had talked about having to get a hit and wanting to get a hit are two different things. This slide is like my favorite. I'm going to let this video play. I hope the audio is clear. I'm sure we've all seen it, but if anybody saw me and Tukes present at ABCA 2 years ago, it's my favorite scene, the most telling thing.
Good job. 5 tools down. Good looking ball. Off his bat. He throws the ball, connects, he rights, and it pops off the bat. You can hear a lot of pop coming off the bat. If he's, what does he hit?
So, like, if he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good, right? Like, it's such a simple statement. And my favorite part is Brad Pitt's face at the beginning when they're talking about, like, the scouts are in the room talking about clean, like, good body, clean face. And he's like, makes that face. Like, that's the face that I make all the time. Because the only question we have to answer is, can he hit? Can he hit? Why doesn't he hit good? If he's supposed to be so good, why doesn't he hit good? So to me, hitting is very binary. Either you can hit or you can't, period. Like, I don't care about your mechanics. I don't care about your physicality. I don't care about any of that other stuff. You have to be able to hit. And we'll kind of get into some of the whys. Rustling noise. Where's that coming from? There's rustling noise. I don't know if anybody's audio on, or if it's not mine, I don't think, but sorry if anybody hears that. So the point is, again, we have to learn how to hit. And the way I think that has to happen is we have to figure out whether players are capable of doing things on their own when they're younger. We have to like let them see if they can hit the ball. We have to challenge them with levels of difficulty as they get older, and starts from, when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, and you just flip the ball. Like, just, it starts with on the tee, flip them a pair of socks, whatever it is. And then I see my friends fathers who have a lot of time, get to go out in their yard with their kids every day. And they have 4-year-old sons who, they're throwing overhand to them in the yard, and these guys are hitting rockets that are going across the street. And next year they're going to go play t-ball or whatever it is. And they're going to like hit one through a kid who's like out in the outfield, playing with dandelions or whatever. And that's where like the foundation can get built, mechanically. This is really telling to me. We got to speak with Coach Currier. Coach Currier was Bobby's coach at Vermont when he played. And now he's at Fairfield, and Fairfield to me is one of the best programs in the country. I know they're a mid-major, they're probably like lower tier mid-major too, because they're in the Northeast and playing a smaller conference. But we were talking about recruiting on our podcast, and we're like, he said it, like all of us talk about it on the road. It's just so far to find hitters, legit hitters, guys who can barrel the ball jumps off their bat different. And you'd think that in 2021, with all the advancements we've made and all these people talking about, all this cool stuff, how much easier it should be to find hitters, because we should have guys that are more equipped. And I don't think we do. I put together this chart, MLB batting averages over the last 21 years. Like, it's not a good direction that's going. And I would say the mechanics revolution was probably like the beginning of it, was right in the middle of that. The league hit 257 in 2010, and it has gone pretty steadily downhill since then. And that's not to take anything away from what pitchers have done and the advancements that pitchers have made. But hitting has always been about counteracting what the other team does. So part of the mechanics revolution, part of like learning to turn the barrel behind, was to combat the fact that pitchers were throwing a lot of two-seamers, sinkers, like bottom of the zone type pitches, and working into out more than they were splitting the zone up and down. When you sink it and cut it, like, you're trying to get weak contact on the ground. Like, when you ride it and drop it, like, you're trying to get swing and miss, is the way I would describe it. Because what happened was, as we learned how to present the barrel differently to the ball, and not to say that people before, Bobby and other coaches started talking about it, people before didn't have elite mechanics or really good mechanics. Like, the thing is that more people started thinking about swinging up and elevating the ball, or swinging under and elevating the ball. Like, I remember Daniel Murphy talked about it a lot. He just said, I just started trying to hit the ball in the air, because his whole life he had been taught to hit the ball on the ground. So that was like his mechanical change. That was his like little difference that he made. And what that allowed him to do is create better playing, like probably hit balls deeper in the zone. And we never know what the key is going to be to really unlock that for a hitter. And this is where I've really been struggling. This is where I want kind of to get my point across with why I want to do this presentation. Like, we're putting ourselves in a position as coaches, instructors, teachers of the game, where like, it's our fault that people think there's perfect mechanics. Like, it's our fault that young hitters think that they can be like these perfect robots because of the messages that are getting put out. And I don't mean like necessarily anybody on this call or myself, because I try to be like the antithesis of what's kind of going on in the market. Like, everybody's trying to sell their message through some form of media, right? Social, online, whatever. And they're telling other people that they're wrong about how they're teaching hitting. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I put up a tweet about this the other day, like something works for everybody, something works for everybody, but everything doesn't work but something doesn't work for everyone, right? So if you think about it, Like there's one thing, there's one drill, there's like some stupid thing that you're going to tell one player and it's going to make sense to them. Like they're going to be, and it's going to clean them up and it's going to get them to a place where they can create a swing that is repeatable enough or adjustable enough. But there's no like one thing that we can tell everyone that's going to work for them. So I see this world being created because coaches are going, oh, well, I have the answer. And like, dude, you don't have the answer. The answer is how that gap gets bridged between player and athlete, to how that communication ends up happening. And I tell my college guys all the time, I wish I could trade brains with you. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, I would love to have your physicality at your age. And I wish you could have my brain, because I know, because I went through it, I experienced it, I lived it, how hard it is to have that like light bulb moment. And it's funny, one of my guys had his light bulb moment. We've known each other for probably 3 years. And I would say we talk 4 days a week, 5 days a week, maybe, like during the season, off season, probably more like once or twice. And it's more like a big brother, little brother relationship than it is a like player mentor relationship type thing. And he says to me, he goes, dude, he goes, I just figured it out. And I was like, what'd you figure out? And I hate when people tell me they have it figured out. He goes, and I was like, what do you got? He goes, I was in probability class. And I go, you were where? I thought he was going to say I was in the cage. He goes, no, I was in statistics and probability class. And the teacher was talking about coin flips and the percentages of coin flips and how you flip the coin in the air matters. And like the percentage, like just because it's a 50-50 proposition doesn't mean it's going to be that in the short run and blah, blah, blah. And I go, so you correlated that to hitting, right? And he goes, yeah, I just figured out that I'm like, when I go up to bat, I have a less than 50-50 chance of getting a hit. So why would I get frustrated when I don't get a hit and then start to think that it's about my mechanics immediately, unless there was something that I was aware of. So like, I don't care about getting a hit today. And I was like, wow, it sounds mature. And you had that aha moment in probability class. And my point is, everybody figures it out, what they need to do. Everybody figures out their thing at some point. We can't control when it's going to happen. We can just keep educating people and teaching them the things that we think are important. But when we put the emphasis on the mechanical, there's rabbit holes that players are going to go down that are really, really dangerous, because they're always going to be chasing it. And that literally is going to define them going from like the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. Because when they're playing well, they're going to think they're awesome. And when they're not getting results, when they're not playing well, they're going to feel like crap. And they're going to start going down like this path of like, oh crap, is it my mechanics? I got to fix my swing. Same point with another player that I have, like kind of every night, like he would just call, or not every night, but every other night, every third night, like, hey, what do you think about like the back elbow? What do you think about this guy's swing? What do you think about that guy's swing? And I said, it's great. It's a good swing. Like, he's like, well, I want to have more of like a Tatis pattern today, or what do you think about Gleyber Torres, or what do you think about Rafael Devers? And I'm like, dude, they all play, like their swings play, and none of them is more perfect than the other. What you have to understand is what pitches they swing at, how on time they get, and whether they understand what they're good at and what they're bad at. Because if they don't understand what they're good at and what they're bad at, what their swing allows them to do, then it doesn't matter. So this is this next slide basically goes kind of into that hitting manifesto thing. These are like, this is one of the slides in the presentation. These are the 16 things that I think like are going to define how good we can be at hitting. In order, in my order, in Pellettero's order. Getting another call. Sorry, it's great. Good timing. Hang on. I think I know why he's calling me, but I don't know for sure. So anyway, these are the 16 things that I think define hitters, or like the 16 things we need to work on. and mechanics is number 11. And so like those other 10 concepts come before mechanics. And you can make the argument that mechanics kind of allow that all to be created. But I think from a focal standpoint, that's where I would put it. If I get a new hitter in the cage, the first thing I'm going to do is look at his athleticism. I'm going to be like, okay, is he athletic? Cool. Does he have to be super athletic? No, but he has to have some athletic qualities, i.e. ability to rotate, ability to be balanced, stand on 2 feet, things like that. Do they have good hand-eye coordination? Like, it's a non-measurable thing, but like as hitting guys, as baseball people, we can kind of tell. Number 3, do you know how to swing at good pitches? Like, what is a good pitch? Do you know how to swing at it? Number 4, be on time. And the funny thing is like I could move mechanics down 1 on this list because I would adjustability is kind of like a roaming topic to me. Like I would put adjustability number 1 because adjustability from like a holistic standpoint is what allows us to make the changes we need to make during our own struggles, during our own difficult times, right? Because that's how we eventually become better, and that's how we tweak our mechanics. We don't change our mechanics by going to look at a video and saying, oh, this video is telling me I'm suboptimal. Like if anybody follows Teacher Man here or looks at Teacher Man stuff, like I think he has some good concepts. Like this is the scary part, but like he's trying to tell you that there's one way to hit, like, and it's working within an optimal set of circumstances. Like rotation's great if you're perfectly on time. If you're perfectly on time. And being perfectly on time happens so rarely in hitting that like it's a disservice to teach people to hit like saying like, oh, like stay connected, turn the back shoulder under, swing with your back, whatever the concepts are, launch quickness, like great, because hitting doesn't exist in an optimal world. It does not. So we have to create sets of movements that allow players to be adjustable. And the only people that can really do that are the players themselves. We can explain the concepts behind them, but we can't tell them, hey, do this. And I think that's part of what's happened to a lot of players. And I'm actually really curious to hear any experiences individually that people on this chat have had, because I know what mine are like, and it just seems like every player is chasing a perfect mechanic. We can counteract that. We can combat this while we're in the cage, while we're training, by focusing on creating outcomes. Like, focus on creating outcomes. Like, hit the ball that way. Hit it over there. Do it. Challenge. Like, and then be there to support them, when they're failing. Be there to support people, like build relationships with players. And this is kind of like what I talked about in the last presentation too. The other thing we have to do is give kids freedom. Like we have to give them freedom to explore things. Like for years when I was growing up, everybody was keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. So like it was like the counter mechanics revolution, swing revolution generation, where they were like, hey, get your foot down early. Don't do what the guys on TV are doing. Don't wrap the bat around your head, all those things. So like the point of the story is, and I put 2 really good hitters on here, right? Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente. And I put 2 completely different looking swings that they had. Now you could say Aaron looks the same, like with his lower half and things like that, which is true. But like that's him hitting a ball way out front with his arms extended. Clearly his path was like more down, flatter or whatever, and the ball's coming off the bat that way. And in the other one, he's hitting the ball deeper in the zone, right? And sorry, I didn't mean to click there. I was trying to move my thing. And in the other one, it's a ball like a little bit more elevated in the zone, probably a fastball that he was on time to. And, like more of what somebody would say is like an ideal swing right now. The first Clemente one on the left is absurd. Like that's probably a heater up and in, maybe a breaker up and in that like somebody hung, and he like stood up to hit it, and his back foot is 3 feet off the ground. Like, there's not two people on the planet that would teach anybody to hit like that. You would never teach that. But Roberto Clemente figured out how to do that himself to counteract what was happening. And like, we go back to the conversation, like the real conversation, we're not on offense when we're on offense. We're on defense. Like, we're playing defense. Like, I'm defending against what he's doing. So my responsibility is to figure out what's happening out there, like both from the pitcher and on defense, and be able to combat that. It's the only sport where I'm on offense, but I'm on defense. I don't have the ball in my hand. Before slow-mo video, data analysis, all that stuff, these guys learned how to create great swings. They all live within what people define as elite swing patterns. And the reason why is because they were really good at hitting. They got really good at hitting, and they blended, like, their mechanics created themselves because they were trying to figure out how to hit the ball where they wanted to. This is my favorite line in the whole thing. Their objective was to make swings that created hits. The how was secondary to the what. Like, they were trying to get hits. So again, yes, focus on hitting the ball hard, but understand, like, in training environments, hey, when we try to hit the ball hard in training environments and we chase those carrots of exit velocity and things like that, we have to make sure we're giving context to the information. Like, you're not taking the ball down or away and hitting it 136 over the pull side wall. Like, it's just not happening. So, like, what is good over there? It's about redefining good. Like, we have to redefine good for what the game has been asking for 130 years. Get to first base. Like, figure out a way to get on first. Yeah, figure out how to hit the ball up the gap, figure out how to drive the ball over the wall. But let me tell you something. If we have hitters that are creating too much swing and miss at a young age, they're never going to be able to play at the next level. They're never going to be able to play at the highest level. Yes, there's too much swing and miss in the big leagues, but there's too much swing and miss in college and high school too. And we have to cut those numbers down, especially if we want to give those kids a chance to get to the ultimate level. We can put a focus on simple physical cues. Like, we have to find simple things that will help them within creating the objective. Like, hit the ball here, like, hit it over there and figure out how that feels. Hey, hit this pitch at the top of the zone, figure out what that felt like. Hit this pitch at the bottom of the zone, figure out what that felt like. And then learn small physical cues within that. Because the opposite is happening. We're taking players and we're like, hey, do this move, turn this front hip in, turn your pelvis, angle the bat out. And all of a sudden now, like, you're thinking about 5 different things within the mechanics, and you forget what the true objective of the swing is. So, like, you're almost bred to believe that the objective is to move well and not to hit good. Whoops. So just what we started doing, and part of the reason why Pelotero was built, I was watching guys come in to hit for like 2 years, and they would come in and they would just, like, we would give them all the freedom in the world, and we would go, all right, just do what you need to do. And I forgot that at 14, you're blacked out 90% of the time. You're just straight blacked out. You don't know what the heck's going on. You're thinking about probably like cotton candy, you know, the girl in class, how much homework you got, you know, where you're going on the weekend, all that stuff. And definitely, like, now what's on your Instagram and Twitter. So one day I just randomly I was so tired of watching bad work happen that I just randomly put like 6 drills out. Just randomly, I put them on the wall. I was like, I'm tired of watching these guys hit like this. And then sure enough, like, they all started having structure to their work. They all had like a plan. They all knew what they were trying to accomplish. And the drills were like dumb. It was like, hey, front foot elevated, or, you know, whatever. And it was just random. So now what we did is we were like, all right, well, how do we do that, but do it in an individualized way? Like, because I'm seeing how much better they're working. So when we built Pelotero, we're like, all right, figure out what guys are good and bad at, and then like individually create programs for each one of them. And now once the program's built, Now I can coach within it. But they have their cues. They have their focuses. They're all simple. They're like, hey, hit the ball over here. Hey, hit the ball over there. Hey, do this. Work on this. And the tech is telling them what to focus on. And now we can coach. We can coach within it. Now I can say, hey, all right, you're struggling to hit the ball the other way. Well, maybe like think about like getting in the zone a little bit deeper. Maybe feel yourself like turning the bat back here instead of like, pushing your hands out front or whatever the cue may be. So that was like the foundation of all of this. So like my suggestion is like build programs for players that ultimately like allow them to have a focal point that isn't something they're doing with their body. It's like, hey, do this drill, but hit the ball there. And like on the screen, like you can see a sample program that we do with Pelotero. Like we put that piece of the field highlighted because it's like, oh, well, your swing direction showed up as pull. Well, your first T drill, your warm-up drill is going to be a T drill oppo, and then obviously our algorithms and stuff do more crazy stuff than that. But like we're trying to create a focus on what the ball does, because I think as stupid as this may sound, I think players aren't focusing on what the ball is doing. They're focusing on how their body is moving, and they're not remembering that the only reason they're trying to move their body is to make the ball go somewhere. I don't want to discredit how important mechanics were to me or to some players who really, really need it. But I think we can use data and technology better than we are. I think the industry has done a disservice, like being done a disservice by like those numbers going down. We can say all we want. Pitchers are getting better. Yeah, their stuff's good, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, we got to do something about it. And clearly, in my opinion, we're not. And that's the problem I have with all of it. And that's why I think this matters. I think I'm passionate about how the game's being taught. And I think there's a time and place for the mechanical discussions, but they're trumping all the other conversations. And that's why I get frustrated, because it's like, time out. We got to figure out what hitting is first. We got to figure out how to create the outcomes we want. We got to figure out how to teach kids, hey, hit the ball, do this, create this, and let their bodies organize themselves for a while. And then like, now we can get into nuancey details when we get further along down the road. But I know too many 12 to 20-year-olds right now that struggle mightily with not being sure of whether their mechanics are optimized. And it's frustrating. Like, because I say like, man, you got to go compete. You got to go survive. And maybe we can call it a generational thing, whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Maybe people can say, like, the older generation always says, oh, they're not as tough as we were, like, I don't know, maybe. But anyway, that's my presentation. My last slide's pretty, so I'm gonna pull it up, and then I'm gonna stop sharing and see if anybody's got any questions or wants to talk about anything, and go from there. Can everybody unmute themselves if they want to just talk openly in the chat? Brian.
Give me 2 seconds. Chris, give me 2 seconds. I'm finishing putting Robbie down to bed.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
right there.
I think we're fine. Like, it's not my first time. Brian asked in the chat, test the program, week 1, day 2. Is there a way to get summary or hitting sessions review after each session? We're enjoying it. I just think it would be useful to have some more feedback. So yeah, this is actually, Brian, hi, thank you for asking. Like, this is something we're working on in development right now. So as we get to like our next versions, what I'll say is this: like, we wanted to get the product out to the world quickly before this off season. So I feel like there were some things that we certainly have in our minds and are considering that we want to like push along. We thought it was important that we get out what we had at the time, but definitely things that we are working on that are in the pipeline, and we want to make available to everyone. In an ideal world for me, I could be in a cage with every player all the time. I love being in the cage. As frustrating as it may be, I love being in the cage. And I want to be in the cage with everyone. So the more I want to do stuff like to add to our software to be able to put my stamp kind of on all the things that we do and be able to give as much clean feedback as we can. Another question came in. I have a player that just finished first month and is doing great off tee and flips, but when on fast moving pitch, he struggles. So we're ready to adjust so timing becomes a higher priority. Absolutely. I think, so again, part of, and Bobby will probably want to speak to all this stuff too. Part of like the difficulty, the challenge, doing all the things we're doing, right, is there's this element of like, how do you create the best information? How do I gather the best information from a hitter to be able to give the best information to that hitter? Velocity thresholds, timing elements, strike zone issues. Those are all things that are being built into what we're doing as we move along. I would say this fundamentally, the focus to me early, especially early in the off season, like depending times of year you're at, the focus to me is about creating a swing that plays. If you can create a swing that plays off the tee and in flips, then you can hit. And that sounds stupid, but you can hit. Now you just have to learn timing. And the only way you can learn timing, in my opinion, is when you get challenged by timing and you get challenged by velocity. So those things all get built in to the program as it moves along throughout the course of the offseason. I would say for any individual hitter, if that's something they struggle with, we have to create scenarios where like that's how we challenge them, right? And I think they should want to challenge themselves if they know that. But that's part of the mindset and psyche that we want to try to, I don't know, put into them, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like stuff we need to educate them on so that they feel comfortable enough to go and fail on their own, if that makes any sense. Robert, do you have any thoughts?
I had one thought during your presentation. I remember hearing a quote about Tiger Woods, and at one point they said he started playing golf swing and stopped playing golf, where he was so focused on his swing that he was not focused on making shots and controlling his golf ball and scoring. He was more focused on being precise and mechanical and sound with the swing and not just go play the game. So you had that list of what was 16 items in your manifesto that everything is important. Everything's important. You need all of those things to be good. My biggest fear with the players when they start blaming their mechanics, like they'll make it out in a game, like, oh, my swing did this, my swing. No, you just didn't execute. You didn't compete in that at bat. You let the guy beat you, or maybe you faced a really good pitcher and they got you out. But the snap decision that, oh, it's my swing's fault is so dangerous. It's so dangerous to hitters.
That's funny. That was a good play on.
That wasn't even a thing. That wasn't even a thing.
So funny though. I thought it was funny.
So yeah, if anybody has questions or anything, I mean, about this topic or in general, feel free to fire up the chat, or you can raise your hand. I think if you click on the reaction button on the bottom, you can raise your hand and then we'll unmute you. And
there's a question that came through in the chat. Last couple games I couldn't hit at all. Should I stick with the same approach and compete looking fastball and adjusting? That's like a really loaded question. Super loaded. Yes and no at the same time. The things that we have to identify the why, right? Like, why are things happening to us? And sometimes it's because the sky's dark and the umpire stinks and I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I didn't eat my vegetables or whatever. And sometimes it's because I blacked out and did things poorly. The gauge that I always used for myself, and it's super simple. Like, am I hitting fastballs down the middle? Like, because if I can hit fastballs down the middle, then I can hit it. Like, I can hit. Like, but I don't know if I can. Like, the reason why I'm not hitting the fastball down the middle, if it happens 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row, and it's getting to a point where like I'm panicked. Like, if I'm hitting that ball on the ground, I know what it feels like to be on time, right? I've experienced that. I've learned that. If I feel late, I'm obviously going to make an adjustment to be early. If I feel under, I'm going to make an adjustment to be over. A lot of times, like, what'll happen to me is, or what would happen to me, I guess, is like my top hand would just kind of get lazy. Like, I would like let go too soon and I'd lose the barrel. And that was always a sign to me, like when I'd hit like the hook rollover ground ball on a pitch that I thought I should clobber. If it was a nasty two-seamer that got to the inner third and I was looking out over the plate, like, well, hey, I made an out because I made an out. But I had to be really honest about what I was swinging at with myself. If I wasn't honest with myself, then I couldn't make better judgments about what needed to happen. And I asked questions too, right? Like, I asked questions to people that I thought were advanced or that were there. For me, my dad was a resource. Now, granted, conversations with my dad, past the age of 13 just turned into like screaming matches. Like, we just yell at each other. And he's great. He's my best friend. I love him to death. But like, oh, I can't believe you grounded out 4 times. So I was like, yeah, I was trying to hit 4 ground balls to shortstop, obviously, when I was, in high school. So
I have a quick chart here. This is Kyle Tucker. We got a lot of conversation going on with him on Twitter right now. These are his swings for 2021. So like, think about swing decision, because you mentioned that, like, if the pitch is up, you're feeling this, pitch is down. Like, just understanding your swing decisions makes a big difference. So that was all his swings. And then these were all his takes. So like, edges of the zone, away from the zone, he's taking pretty good there. And then if you look at his chart for where his hits are, it's all in the middle of the zone. No. Like, you get hits in the zone, you don't get hits out of the zone. But the kid will chase a pitch off the plate or get busted in or chase something up that they can't handle. And then they'll be like, oh, my swing.
So to that point, and like, I'm going to add to that. So what Bobby and I used to talk about was like, and this is another reason why I think like the mechanics are just so secondary. Like, I was really good at hitting before Bobby taught me anything about mechanics. And like, I had heard stuff like, oh yeah, like, hands up. No, I tried a lot of stuff on my own because I just went down these like exploratory paths. And when I say I tried stuff on my own, I mean, like, if I was 0 for 8, and so I'm going to answer this question again. If I was 0 for 8, I'd lose my mind. Like, I was on another planet, and I'd be like, all right, well, maybe I got to stand really wide, but they were like stupid things, right? They were like, well, let me stand tall, or let me leg kick, or let me widen out, let me get my hands really high. Those adjustments, I think, should be made moment to moment. Like, those could happen moment to moment, right? Like, pitch to pitch. Thought adjustments can happen much more quickly. And if they're thought adjustments that lead to like a change in stance, it's funny, like, people thought your stance mattered. Well, it does, because sometimes it makes you move a little bit differently, right? So anyway, like, there's fine lines with everything that we have to really kind of consider as we do stuff. And the thing I'm going to say that's most important is this: like, every athlete needs to be convicted in what they're doing. It doesn't matter if there's no right and there's no wrong. Like, it doesn't matter if you hit like Tatis, or it doesn't matter if you hit like, Trout, or it doesn't matter if you hit like Machado, like, or Acuna. Like, it matters that you believe that what you're doing is right. Because if you do, then you'll create good swings. And like, that was the other conversation with my other college guy, who's like, he's been on this, like, he'll send me, like, he's like, hey, what do you got on Glaber? What do you got on this guy? Like, and I'm like, dude, you're going to hit it. Like, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Like, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You go 3 for 5 with, 2 singles and a double, but, you hit your double off the handle a little bit and you floated it in. like, I should have gone deep there. Like, so now you go down this path of like, oh my God, I got to get back. Like, no, dude, you just got 3 knocks. Like, you just got 3 knocks. Like, be happy, move on. Like, let's go to the next one, you know? And like, certainly like try to figure out why you got jammed on that one pitch, why you made your 2 outs. You know, you hit your 2 singles hard, whatever. They were both on the ground. Okay. Like, let's back the ball up. Maybe think about right center a little more. But there are very simple cues that we can work on to kind of, you know, address things. Brian, thank you for the message. I'll address that. You said, any thoughts on developing pitch recognition? Donaldson every day, or like every first day of a series when we were in Toronto together, would put the breaking ball machine on, like out on the field. Like, he would go do breaking ball machine on the field as his early work. This is a guy who, like, now honestly, JD didn't hit in the cage all season. Like, the only guy I've ever seen not hit in the cage all season. That may or may not have something to do with the fact that neither one of our hitting coaches could throw BP. Like, they couldn't. Like, they literally, we had 2 hitting coaches couldn't throw batting practice. And one of them couldn't flip. Like, so no offense, like, to him or anything. He literally couldn't flip the ball over. Like, he would hit guys during flips. And I'm like, what is happening? I don't know what's going on. But Donaldson would put the breaking ball machine on. 2 things for pitch recognition. Number one is, I think it can happen organically. The more we see it, the better we're going to get at it. I don't know that recreating spin off a machine, for me anyway, was ever like the thing that I thought I needed. Over the course of time, I started understanding what breaking balls look like, what the shapes looked like back here better. I think it's a matter of like delivering the message about like find, and I talk about this in the manifesto. I hope you guys all get a chance to look at it and read it and tell me what you think about it, because I talk about like these nuancy differences. And this is, again, why it's like this intertangled web of crap. Like the way a guy comes set might tell me something about what pitch he's going to throw. Like hearing the catcher move behind me might tell me something about what he's going to throw. And then like when he gets to right here, it might tell me something about what he's throwing. Those are all things that we need to like pay attention to, and we need to focus on as we're teaching players how to develop recognition for pitches. On top of that, I certainly don't think there's a problem with mixing in breaking ball machine. Like in our programs that get closer to the season, and as we're accumulating more information for players, we have breaking ball machine in our database as like a drill, like that I think is important. We have some mixed stuff. At the end of the day, it comes down to your eyes, right? And how much you trust your eyes, and how much your eyes can relate that information or relay that information to your brain, how quickly it can, and how well your brain is now telling you, okay, this pitch is going to do that. It's a deep topic to me. Pitch recognition is it's heavy, like, right? It's a huge piece. People ask me all the time how to learn how to hit breaking balls. I say, don't miss the fastball, man. Just don't miss the heater. That's how you hit the breaker. The key is to swing at the right ones. And I think a lot, like, we just have to understand the shapes of the pitches, and then it helps us understand how to swing at the right ones.
Chris, I want to build on that real quick. Some people talk about seeing spin. I 100% saw spin. A lot of people claim that you can't see spin, which is crazy to me because I don't know how people hit without seeing spin. There's trajectory, like shape of pitch out of the hand. Like, does it pop up? Does it start down? I think count is a major factor, and just understanding the pitcher you're facing. But this is my number one favorite topic. If you get in a room with a major league hitter, ask them about how they see the ball, who do they see the ball well against, what are they looking for, like where do they want the ball to start. All of those things, all of those talking points are incredible if you get access to a major league player. Chris, can you share? Yeah, you're a major league player.
Woo! Yeah.
Guys, like, describe somebody that you saw the ball well against, and then describe somebody you didn't see the ball well against, who I know who that's going to be, but Like,
Yeah.
what do you see when you see the ball well, and what do you not see, or what's missing when you're not seeing it well?
So this is why my guy BG's on here. Brandon plays for Eastern Nazarene, and like Brandon impressed me so much when I went to speak to their college team that he ended up becoming one of my guys. So like, and the reason, like, he's on here right now listening. So BG, one love. I had like, the more you hit, the more you realize who the guys are that are yours and who the guys are that aren't. Like, it's weird. My like arch nemesis, my kryptonites were like Anibal Sanchez, Miguel Gonzalez, like guys that were just like 88 with like 17 different breakers that had like a little bit different spin or a little different arm slot. And it's crazy because like Edison Volquez, I've played 5 games against him. I think I homered in 4 of them. Jake Odorizzi couldn't get me out if his life depended on it. Like, literally to the point where him and Chris Archer, the first times I faced him in the minor leagues, I homered against both of them in minor league spring training. And the first time I faced both of them during the year, I was 3 for 3 against Odorizzi with 2 bombs and a double. Yes, I'm telling a homer story, Bobby. And then the next day I faced Archer and I was 2 for 3 against him with a bomb. And it got to the point I homered against both of them in the big leagues. And they both came up to me at one point walking through the tunnel in Tampa, and they're like, dude, every time you're not playing when we're pitching, we're like so excited. We talked about it openly. And that's, I could feel it. I didn't know if they noticed it, right? For whatever reason, the ball looks clean. And I don't know if it's their shapes. I don't know if like it has to do like, I don't know why. And everybody has their guys, right? Everybody has their guys. It's so weird because, you know, best pitcher on the planet. Like, there was a dude that played in Columbus, Matt Carson, I want to say, but was with the Indians. Career minor leaguer, like 4A guy, 4A definition of 4A player or whatever. Didn't have a whole lot of time in the big leagues, but was up with Cleveland. Killed Sale, like just killed him. Like every time he faced him, he homered against him. And I'm like, dude, how do you do that? Chris Sale is so nasty. I'm 2 for 13 against this guy with 9 punchies or whatever it is. But this guy owned him. So everybody kind of has their guys, and there's.
What would you look for? Would you look for, like, people talk about the skinny wrist? Would you look for fingers on top of the ball? Like I would see pronation.
Yeah.
I would see spin. I would see like guys who had like two seam fastball changeup where they turn over the changeup more and it'd be a little sloppier spin. Was it different? I would assume it's different for different people. And then you have the whole deal with, like, you got Deanna Navarro on the bench telling you how the guy tips his pitch every single time. So it's different for everybody, I think.
I think it's a little bit of everything too. I think it's so like from here on, there's something a little bit different between heater and breaker, right? And that's why people talk about tunneling. And the funny thing is like everybody's talking about tunneling, but they want to tunnel from the back. Like they're all using video from behind.
Don't give away the hitter secrets. Don't tell them that.
Yeah, like what are you guys doing? Like it all matters from what it looks like from in the box and from angles of hitters. I would say this, like, and Jake Odorizzi is the guy that stands out in my mind because, like, I could always tell when it was a heater when he was, like, here. And I felt like I was going to obliterate it because I knew I was on time to it. And then, like, if I could tell it was a heater, I could tell when it was a not heater, too, you know, if that makes any sense. So I knew I had time to decide later. So I felt like I could check off anything that he threw me. And I don't know if it's his elbow, his wrist, his shoulder, his, you know, how far out his arm was, but like it was just something that happened. And then obviously we want to like look at spin on pitches. There are some guys, their spin's so tight that you can't recognize. And like if like we talked with KP about this in our podcast a few weeks ago, like some guys you just got to go up and like there are times when you just take a chance and say, all right, this pitch is going to be this. I would always hit off the fastball predominantly unless I knew, like I had to know they were throwing something else. Like I had to know. And I felt like if I created fastball timing, I could make adjustments to anything. But when I say that, like, my priority was figure out a way to get on first. So I was willing to stick my butt out, stick the bat out over home plate, and flip the ball over a second baseman's head, just because it was a defense mechanism. I was playing defense, dude. Like, and that's why I think hitters, I think where we fail a little bit now, because we don't say great job when that's happening, because the machine doesn't tell you that it's 98 or 100 or 105 miles an hour. And we don't care. Like, the game, like, people are trying to make you believe that singles suck or that they're not good. Like, a soft single through the shift doesn't matter, but like, you're reshaping the whole game here in the playoffs, and you're watching teams literally like make the sacrifices to hit a ball through the shift. And it's what baseball's supposed to be more of. Anyway, I got a question. I don't know if, Bobby, you can see it, but
just two. I got two quick things. The Game Sense app, it's fairly cheap. Run it off your phone just to see arm action. And the thing I like about it is it's game speed arm action. You can start to see if the ball's popping out of the hand. Certain guys, their elbows will be lower when they throw a slider, things like that. You can have conversations. Pretty simple app. You can run it if you can run it off a projector in a team setting. It's pretty fun. You can have conversations and work on your timing. Win Reality, I like for timing. I don't think the quality of the game, the headsets are up enough to see spin and to see like nuances of release point. But for timing, I think it's a great resource. So there's things out there. You can always just film your pictures too. Like, if you just set up an iPhone and film your pictures, like, do some high speed stuff, get the release point so you can see like fingers coming off the side of the ball, fingers staying behind the ball, pronation, like, look for those things and have the conversations.
Or you can work on your stuff in the cage like I used to. There were days when I'd have 600 pitch days because I loved competing and challenging hitters. So like, I had like a 14 pitch mix, I think. 4 seam, 2 seam, cutter, that's 3. Short slider, long slider, that's 5. Big curveball, diagonal curveball, that's 7. 4 seam change, 2 seam change, that's 9. Knuckleball's 10. Splitties 11. Knuckle curve is 12. That's 12 pitch mix.
Pretty good.
Yeah. The other question on here, let me answer this.
Go ahead.
Besides hit the ball there in the programs, as the product's developing more, there will certainly be more stuff that is outcome based. For the most part, all the drills within our platform have like, hey, hit a ball in this direction. When you're doing the programs on HitTrax, there are parameters that are set for like all the batted balls. That's all like getting developed and pushed along and gonna be enhanced over time. And I think it's important that it is. Different thresholds for different levels of hitters, like expertise levels, like based on how our algorithms score stuff. There's more of that. And I actually want to develop some game stuff. I won't let the cat out of the bag too much, but there's more things that are certainly in the pipeline and in my view, because I'm like a 6-year-old who just wants to have fun all the time.
Yeah, I got 2 questions on my end. Do you have any on yours right now?
No, you're getting privates and I'm getting privates, I think.
Yeah. So SCS, I don't know what SCS is, but SCS is asking what Pelotero drills focus on improving the lower half in the swing.
That's an interesting question. I think all hitting drills work on whatever you want them to work on. That's a stupid answer, but I think it's important to consider. Like, working on the lower half is like, that's like a big question. SCS, I saw another question come through from SCS. Chris Fay, I will come to Framingham whenever you want. Nextpitchbaseball.org. Shoot, I can go today. So like, working on the lower half, like, what does that mean? Like what does that mean? How does a player work on their lower half? Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't start deadlifting until I was like 26. Like, I never did a deadlift. I hated squatting. Like, I still to this day cannot stand leg day at the gym. I went and told my guys that I train with over here that I was like, hey, I'm just never doing legs. And then somehow they like sucked me into doing like a step up or like a light lunge. So from a standpoint of like, how do you work on your lower half? It really all depends. Like, what are you trying to do? What does working on your lower half mean? Like, this is going to sound like crappy, but I don't think the swing happens from the lower half. I think the swing happens from the midsection. And I think our hips and our like torso are the driving point of what happens with the swing. And then we have to create ground force and stuff like that to be able to create direction and authority at impact. So like, what drills work on the lower half? Like, well, when I'm trying to create direction, my lower half has to work to do that. So anytime I'm hitting a ball to a particular part of the field, that direction is being created. So every swing I take is working on my lower half, if that makes any sense. That's the way I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the assessment that we do on hit tracks right now, it's going to isolate where you struggle. So like if you struggle lifting the ball, we're going to give you drills to help you lift the ball, and you're going to need to use your lower half better to accomplish that. If you struggle pulling the ball or going oppo, it's a lot of people want drills that will work on something specific, and that's just not realistic. It's not there's certain times when, yes, you need to like do an isolation drill. I will say that we have a swing mechanics tool that will be coming out. So we'll be able to help isolate specific things, but it's got to be looked at in the context of the full swing.
Yeah. SCS also asked hitters. We said one time hitters are born, not made. Do I still believe that? I was born a hitter that had to get made. So there's like the only thing I ever wanted to do was hit. So I was born a hitter that wasn't very good. I was good. I figured out how to get hits, but I think there's some in between the lines to that statement. Like, I had to develop into a great hitter. I wasn't a great hitter. I could hit, but I wasn't a great hitter. That sounds weird. Like, I knew how to compete. I guess I should say competitors are born. They're not made. Maybe that's like, because I think the compete gene, like this just innate desire to not take no for an answer is kind of like where it all stems from. Because if you have that, then I think you can do anything you want in life. So, I don't know. I don't know if that's a fair answer or an appropriate answer.
I think it's fair. We got a question from Michael. He's unmuted right now.
So Chris, kind of on your presentation, like thinking about like when I was growing up hitting, like all that mattered. And I mean, it was pretty much your batting average. Like I was always looking at it like that defined you as a hitter.
Sure.
And I think now as coaches, like, I mean, we can push like, okay, be a hitter, like not mechanics focused, but I think like they're still going to go on social media. They're still going to be on social media to an extent. And I think it's so easy now on social media to post a swing from the face on because it looks sexy. It has clout and, people respond to that, but like, it's probably not sexy to post your batting average or something along the lines of doing that. But like, how do you change the narrative on it through social media? Cause it's not going to go away.
Yeah. That's like one of those existential, like bigger than me type questions. And all I know is we can only do our part, right? Like I can only do my part. You can only do your part, and everybody can only do their own part. And I think we live in a day and age, like, and this could get like bigger than just a, hitting conversation.
Yeah, no doubt.
We live in a day and age where people want to be polarizing, and it's like, I've watched 2 documentaries in the last week and a half that are both about like how this one came out on HBO. It's called 15 Minutes of Shame. It's like people are like into like tearing each other down now instead of like lifting each other up. It's scary because like I can say this and you're going to say that, and then it almost becomes like personal, like travel organizations, hitting coaches. I see it every day and I laugh. Like I just laugh. And full circle, and like you didn't watch last week's webinar by any chance?
No.
The whole webinar last week was based off getting athletes to hear you, and that was kind of my starting point. And that's Bobby hadn't thought of that topic, and the first thing I said I want to do was like, this is a topic I want to do, because this is the most important thing we're going to do. This is how we make an impact on kids' lives. like we build trust and we build relationships with our athletes. Look, it can be forced, it can be authentic. Like to me, authenticity always trumped everything else. And you're not going to get through to everyone, but you're going to build your core foundation of people, like whether it's at a facility or in training. And like that culture then ultimately like diffuses through your organization, I think, where if people know they can trust you, then they're gonna be more likely to listen to the words that you say or hear the words that you say. Rich always used to say to us, there's a difference between listening and hearing. Like there's a bunch of guys listening to me in this room that aren't hearing my message. And he goes, the guys that are hearing my message are the ones that probably don't need to, because they're the ones that are like letting it sink in. And it was so powerful to me because I got major league player, 13-year major leaguer in front of me. I'm an idiot if I don't listen to him. He's run the race that I want to run. Like he ran it. So like, why don't I need to know everything he knows? And not to say that that's like the imperative thing, because if you are there for people, I think more often than not, especially with kids, like they're not stupid. If you're just there for them and you remind them that like to have fun and you just lift them up when they're down, a lot of times I think that gap gets bridged, and now they start turning to you. And I always just allow people to ask questions. I let them make their own mistakes, don't get me wrong. Like, hey, listen, pal, after you're done getting kicked in the teeth, I'm right here, just let me know. Let me know when you need me. And that's how a lot of my relationships are built. And I don't think I'm special for it. I just know that that's what people did for me. Rich Gedman did that for me. Rich Gedman was there for me every day whenever I needed him. And that's why to this day, like Rich Gedman don't use tech. He doesn't understand, like he does, but he claims to not. He doesn't understand a lot of the new age stuff. Still the guy that I would tell you, if you need hitting help, I'm going to go see him. Like if I need somebody, I'm going to him or Bobby. Cause you know why? Cause I trust them. Right? Like they're my guys. So that's where it kind of starts from for me.
For sure.
The only thing I'll add to that is don't try to make everybody happy, especially in social media, because everybody's out for their own interest. Create your network, create your relationships, and the mute button is awesome. You can just mute somebody. Don't give them the satisfaction of a block. Just mute them, and it won't pop up. It's amazing. People send me stuff all the time. I'm like, why are you putting yourself through this on social media? Like you choose your following, you curate your audience on there. They just don't subscribe to it, and it makes life a lot better.
This all stems from like last night. So Jeff Fry went after Casey's man for whatever reason. I think Casey does a nice job. And Jeff goes after Teacher Man, right? Which, look, it is what it is. Like, I just need people to not be douchebags. That's all I care about. Just stop being a douche. If you stop being a douche, we can have a constructive conversation. Like, that's what matters. Like, being constructive, offering solutions, trying to help, right? And really opening our minds up to the fact that we don't know everything. And, like, that's the problem that I have. Like, I don't know everything. I literally don't. I know what worked for me. And I'll tell you this, it could have worked better. I could have found stuff that worked better. And that's the scary shit about all this is like, I had my moments where I was really good, but it could have been better. Like I won the AAA MVP. I hit 354 with 24 homers and 73 RBIs in 89 games. And I look back in that season and I see so many gaps where I like let at bats go away. And I'm like, damn it. Like I could have hit 400, that's the scary thing about this game. And that's why like understanding, like redefining good is what's important. And that's like, to your point, Michael, you talked about like people don't want to talk about batting average. They want to talk about quality at bats. They want to talk about this. Batting average still matters, because if you can't hit, if you don't know how to get hits, you're never going to learn how to get hits as you go along. So that's a part that like you should be able to rip these guys apart when you're playing at a young age. You should be able to move it around. I'm not saying that it has to happen all the time, but batting average has to matter in some capacity. And there's balance, right? Because like all I did was chase batting average my whole life. That's my whole life, my whole career. And it drove me insane. But I'll tell you what, I figured out how to hit 300 most of my life. So anyway.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
All
Everybody.
Right. We either need to get hands up or chats, or we'll wrap it up. We'll certainly stick around. We'll certainly stick around if people have questions, but we got one that just came in. Brandon, your boy, Brandon just asked one. Can you give an example where you are struggling badly at the plate, and what would you tell yourself when trying to get out of the slump? I'm going to guess you sang songs to yourself.
Yeah. Tried everything.
Yeah, I have one. I wasn't as good as Chris. Try to do less. Pick a plan for the day. Pick a pitch. Just make your target really small a day. So if I was really struggling, I'm like, I'm just going to hit a ground ball to the opposite field today. I might try to hit a foul ball into the dugout today, just to force myself to do something that I could control. And like, sometimes you got to sacrifice a day for your next week of success, and that's okay. Don't get so consumed in any individual at bat or any individual game. And like, yeah, there's gonna be games where it'd be really good if you had success and it would really help the team. But like Chris said earlier, like the kid in the probability class or stats class, where you're not going to get a hit every single at bat. It's just not going to happen. But what process can you get yourself back on track with that will lead to success in the next game, the next week, the next month?
I would eat a different thing. I would go to bed at a different time. I would tie my shoes differently. I would use a different bat. I would I just changed things. Like, they were all stupid for the most part, but like I just changed things and like hoped it would work. Like, a lot of times it was like wishing, but to Bobby's point, like simple focuses, right? Like simple focuses. Like Altuve went 0 for 5 the other night and looked like, a fish out of water. And then last night, pow, 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 like, homer or whatever. Like, because he don't care. Like, he's like, oh, I made outs. What an aberration it was an accident. Like, the ability, like I saw an Edgar Martinez quote a few weeks ago. It was like when young players go 0 for 10, they think they're struggling. When I go 0 for 10, I know it's just a matter of time before I start, go 10 for 10 or something like that. Right. So like, what is a slump? Like, what is a slump? A slump's not even a thing. Like, it's not real. Like, a slump's not a real thing. A slump is something that we create in our minds. Cause like, if you're 0 for 4, then it like it's over. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, so why are we considering that? Oh, like I'm 0 for 12. Like I'm 0 for 18. Like they're gone. Like, you are what you are in this moment. And that's it. Like, I have no at-bats before and I have no at-bats after. I have this one. Like, a slump would imply that, and like even the discussions about it and the way we follow statistics in baseball is kind of like the problem, right? Like, because we were bred to believe that we're supposed to be this thing because we all want to define, who's better and who's worse.
The thing you said about changing your batting gloves or tying your shoes different, so Altuve switched bats. He went to a different bat in game 1, then he went back to his normal bat game 2. Changing like a tape job on a bat, changing your batting gloves, taking batting gloves off, wearing a wristband, do something different, and that kinesthetic feel can help you get out of your head. Because most of the time when you're struggling, you're thinking too much. You're thinking about the wrong things. You're not thinking about being on time. You're not thinking about seeing the ball well. You're not thinking about where the pitch needs to start. You're not thinking about the situation of the game. You're like, I got to get a hit. I got to get a hit. I got to get a hit. And you're so focused on the wrong thing. So changing feel, like, oh man, I have no batting gloves on. I'm feeling my handle, and that'll help slip into more subconscious thinking and more sense-based stuff, as opposed to like logical, analytical thinking. That's not good when you need to be an athlete. Really, really good book. Be a Player. It's a golf book, but highly, highly recommend it for the mental game.
You could have promoted our book, Be a Hitter.
You could read our book, Be a Hitter.
Just kidding.
Be a Player is a golf book. The person who wrote it deals with like tons of LPGA tour players. Awesome book. Tons of really like tactical things you can bring to the batter's box with you. It's just a really good book. Highly recommend it. Really good resource there.
Chris Fay, send an email to one. I'm Chris@pelotero.com. Anybody that needs to email me. And
Chris was CC'd on the email for the link we sent out, so you'll have it there.
I'll come in one of these days and.
Very good.
Everybody good?
Final countdown on chat and the raising hands.
Look at that beard on BG.
I'm gonna keep you guys here for a little longer. I just have
As if you couldn't just text me and like be like, "Hey, what's up?" Like you just point Zoom so the other 8 people get to listen to it, so I can't walk my dogs. All right.
If I got you, man, you don't reply, bro.
That's so tired. You are such a liar. Don't fucking put that out in the universe.
No, I have follow-up question. Follow-up question to the struggling hitter. So, as a coach, right? I'm a player. I'm not a coach, but I want to pick your minds a little bit. As a coach, how do you approach a player who is struggling? Do you go up to them and talk to them about like what specifically they're doing wrong? Like, how do you, just as a coach with experience from the good and the bad,
let them fail. Let them fail. Just let them fail. There's a difference between being a team coach and a private coach. I talked about this last week in the webinar. There's a difference. Like the private coach, so like the relationship I have with you, you look at me with trust because like I'm your guy, right? I don't have to worry about Eastern Naz's baseball team. And Chris Shank is your coach. He has to worry about the whole team. So like there's just a different paradigm there, right? Like whatever the head coach is or whoever he is, doesn't matter. So like with me, like if I came up to you tomorrow and was like, hey, your front foot is like not landing on the, flux capacitor plus the pelvic thrust of the ignition, whatever, right? Like that's the whole point, right? Like I can tell you that and you're going to be like, yeah. If he says that to you, you're going to be like, you're probably going to resent them. Right? Like you, in some capacity, I used to resent my hitting coaches, but like Bobby just sent me a thing. Said, Eric Kratz was one of my favorite teammates. He did a podcast with us a couple of weeks ago. One of my favorite teammates ever. Cause he was always smiling, always having fun. I snuck out almost 10 years in the big leagues. Like, and he said, he asked me one day, he goes, when I know you're struggling? And I was like, what do you got? And he's like, when you let me know that you're struggling. Like, if you don't let the world know that you're struggling, nobody knows you're struggling. Like, nobody knows. So it starts with that to me. It starts with how do I set the foundation of like, I'm stronger than this. Like, I'm above it. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm hitting 200 or 250 or 220 or 280. It doesn't matter. Like, does not matter. What matters is like, who's the guy that I'm bringing up to bat with me? And that's what matters. So like beyond that, like what do I say to a player? Doesn't matter. Like all the things that I've said to you in the past, like doesn't matter, dude. Like it doesn't matter if you're 0 for your last 4. It doesn't matter if you're 0 for your last 8. It doesn't matter if you're 0 for your last 12. It matters who you are right now. Like that's all gone. And believe me, I'm saying this from the point of view of a dude who had the hardest time out of anybody he's ever met dealing with 0 for 12. I was like a head case, BG. I was lost. I was nuts. I was tapped. I'm like, I would come home and can't believe I ripping my hair out of my head. Internalized a lot of it. Like, why? And then at some point I was just like, dude, I'm hitting 220 in AA. I'm ready to kill myself. This guy right here. Ask him. You can ask him. He's just sitting right here. I drove from New Britain to Nashville, which is like a 2 hour 40-minute drive. Went past my house. I hadn't seen my girlfriend, who's my wife, thankfully, at the time, in, I don't know, 3 weeks. I had an off day, and usually the off days were when we hung out. I drove to Nashville. I just went past the house. I said, screw this. I'm not even going to Worcester. She was so mad. But I went to the facility. I was like, well, we got to hit. We got to hit. My foot this, like, oh, my arms. He gets to the cage, flips me one ball. He goes, what the hell are you doing? He just go, what's that? And I was like, well, the coach and this guy wanted, and like, this stadium sucks. The sun is setting here, and they're catching everything I hit hard. And dude, I went on for like 2 hours. And by the end of the conversation, we ended up on the curb. We took one swing and we ended up on the curb outside. And at one point, like, I vented it all out. And like, him being him, he's like, yeah, so what? Like, why does any of that matter? And I was just like, are you right?
One of the things I distinctly remember saying is, like, good hitters make more hard outs than bad hitters. So, like, you're mad about that? You're literally displaying that you're a good hitter, and you're mad because the guy's catching the ball. Like, who cares? Control what you can control. Like, the swing he took was miserable because he was trying to help. He was trying to appease this coach who told him he can't leg kick, and he's trying to appease this coach, tell him he can't barrel tip. And he took a swing. I'm like, you just scrapped everything that got you this opportunity, and you just abandon it because you're trying to make other people happy. And you're about to get released because two dudes that don't care, they still have a job when you get released. You abandon everything because you're trying to make those guys happy, and you're hitting 160.
No, I was hitting 220. I mean, pump the brakes a little bit.
It was whatever it was. It was wet. It was not good.
220. It was wet. The only thing that saved me at that point is I had 9 homers by accident. I hit 5 in April, and like 4 of them were in a week. And this is at end of May, and now I have 9. I'm hitting 220 with 9, and that's the only reason I didn't get released. I literally went to the stadium the next day, and I was like, screw this. We had a trip, and I literally, the only thing I did is I just changed my mindset. Like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have a good time. I don't care what happens. I literally was like, I don't care. I told you the Jeff Carson story. Haven't I told you this before? The Jeff Carson's on rehab story?
I don't believe so.
So I'm hitting 223 going into this game in Altoona. And I've got Jeff Carsons, who's a major leaguer, on a rehab. And then I got Garrett Cole the next day. And I'm like, whatever, who cares? Suck anyway. So Carsons comes out. My first at bat on 2 strikes, and he throws me this big sloppy, like, it's like the biggest hook I've ever seen, but it's loose, dude. Like, it's a loose hook, like, just big roly poly. And I'm like, there's no way it's a strike. There's no way it's a strike. There's no way it's a strike. Strike 3. And I walk back to the dugout, and it was the first time all year, instead of going like, I suck, I turned to everybody in the dugout. I go, this dude throws me that pitch again, I'm gonna hit the fucking thing out of here. Like, and everybody's like, yeah, all right, whatever. Next at bat, come up, 1-1, he throws it again. Wow. Like, I got him, right? Left fielder, like, robs it. Second row, like, takes it back. I sprint back in the dugout. I was like, I told y'all I was gonna hit that shit out. Like, I just didn't know he was gonna catch it. Like, I'm having a good time with it. Like, who cares? Next at bat, I hit a hard ground ball up the middle. He fielded it behind his back and threw me out. I ran to first, and I ran back in the dugout. I put my helmet down. I was like, ah! And like, I started having a good time. Guess what happened the next day? Rolled out 2 knocks against Cole. Guess what happened the next day? Rolled out 2 knocks, hit a bomb, rolled out 2 knocks the next day. And then before you know it, like, baseball's fun. I don't know, man. That's what I got.
If a player's completely broken down, you got to find a way to build them back up. If they don't have, if confidence is gone, if they're showing you the story about Kratz, if the player's telling you, I am not confident right now, I got no chance, and I'm letting the world know, I'm coming back to the dugout with my head down, throwing stuff. You just gotta have like a real moment with them and build them back up. And what I would always do in those situations is make it very tangible, make it very literal. Like, hey, you're missing fastballs like this. You're chasing pitches in the dirt. You're like, what is literally actually happening and make it more tangible for that player so they can create a plan around it. That's what I would do. Anything else? Good question.
BG will keep talking if we let him.
I would.
All right.
I would.
Though, he'll hit me up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't text me at that hour. My wife will kill you. My phone's buzzing at that hour.
Is that Barbados? Is Barbados on here right now?
He is.
Wow. Weird. He didn't say anything. Never says anything.
All right. Let's wrap this up. Barbados,
Later.
you can reach out if you need to. Thanks
ya.
everybody for coming. We'll get this recording up quickly and send it out. And more coming. More webinars coming.
Yeah, every Thursday.
Take care, everybody.